Hello everyone, welcome. We are going to draft some Kaldheim. How can we draft some Kaldheim? It's not even out yet. Not out on Arena, not out on Magic Online, not out on paper. However, the list of cards in the set is out, and the set is fully previewed now by Wizards, which has allowed our friend Senryoku, the maker of MTGAdraft.herokuapp.com, where we draft on Fridays and other times of the day, other times of the week. But he's uploaded the full Kaldheim set to MTGA Draft. So we can head over to MTGA Draft and draft the set. We don't get to play it, but we do get to draft it. And the first draft I have set up is only against bots. I'm not going to draft against other viewers right now because I just don't know the set at all. So I want to have a no pick clock situation. And then I'm going to do this once without humans. And then I'm going to bring it in for humans to draft as well. Why are we doing this? There's, what is the value of drafting a new set like this when you don't have the opportunity to play? And when it's not official collation, for example. I think there's several good reasons to draft. Primarily, it's about generating discussion around the new cards. And we can do that just by looking at new cards and talking about them. But when doing it in the context of picks, I think it frames it better. It lets you see what's going on around it, lets you see what you're comparing it against. And lets me talk through my process of assessing what to pick out of a new set. Another thing that makes it worthwhile is no matter what the situation, I don't care if you have, let's say that I stepped away from my computer and 8 bots randomly picked a pack and a half of packs, and then I show up back at my computer and I'm back and now I'm drafting again. Like, what's the point of that? Well, the point is you still have a magic puzzle in front of you. No matter what, if you have a pile of cards that you already have, and a set of new cards from which you get to choose one to add to your existing pile of cards, that is magic drafting. That is a puzzle to solve. That is worth looking at in the context of a new set, because we're going to talk about our reasons for things. And no matter how meaningless it is in terms of long-term context for the set, It is meaningful as a way to generate discussion around the new cards, and meaningful as a way to generate discussion around how one looks at one has and looks at what's available to come up with a pick. That's all useful stuff. That's what we do around here. We try to get better at drafting. And so while we don't have the full set around to draft from and play with, we have the full set around to draft from. And that is going to produce useful tools, especially for me. For my tool here is that I get to learn this set. I know very little about it besides the cards that people have asked me to take a look at on stream up to this point. And really getting to dive into the commons and uncommons here in the context of draft is something I'm looking forward to. And as we see these new cards emerging before your eyes, remember that you can get them all at my sponsor, cardkingdom.com. Not immediately because they're not out yet, but you can pre-order. Once the set's fully out, the pre-orders really begin in earnest. Lock down the cards you want to have 4 of to start your paper standard experience, to make sure that you get the cards right away. They have awesome pre-orders all set, so I want you to go over there and check them out via my affiliate link. That's in the chat link in the panels down below on Twitch here, or on my YouTube notes. You're going to be able to find links to Card Kingdom. That gets you there from here, lets them know you are a viewer of my stream, and support them because you're supporting me. Helps the world go round, helps keep me on the air, all that good stuff. So now I'm going to hop over to the left monitor. Thank you, Card Kingdom. Here we are. So I have it on 7 bots and no timer. So this is going to be a no timer Kaldheim draft. I'm going to increase the size of the cards because it's a new set, so that hopefully people can read the cards with their eyeballs instead of me having to necessarily read out every one. But we're going to give this a start here. Or try. Where is it? Here we go. All right. Let's zoom. Go 3 wide. I think that's readable. Maybe we can even go 2 wide. This is awkward long term, but for right now, I think it's correct as really this is a means to talk about cards, right? So let's do this, and then we can see all the cards. I'm not going to go super deep on each one. Well, we'll see. I shouldn't say anything. I'm just going to talk. Sigrid, God Favored, 1 white for a 2/2 rare. It has Flash. It has First Strike, protection from God creatures. I don't know how many God creatures there are in the set. That's probably a nice little bonus, but really I'm in at 2/2 Flash, First Strike for 3. That's just, and especially at rare, a lot of people aren't going to be playing around this effect. So you're going to be able to surprise them with that effect to begin with. Then we get extra. When this enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target attacking or blocking creature until Sigrid leaves the battlefield. Now we're in like A- territory. Like, I was fine with a 2/2 First Strike that leaps into the battlefield and tries to kill something, but we're talking about a possible 3-for-1 here. 3-for-1 from, let's say I play something, I exile an attacker, and I block a 2 toughness or 1 toughness attacker and kill it with First Strike, and then I have a 2/2 First Striker left behind. Really cool card in terms of the value engine here, just value town, right? Now that's a perfect best case scenario mentality, and that's what Magic cards do, right? They inspire you to think about what they would be in their best case. That can trip you up, but that's why we like to talk about that floor. And the floor of having a Flash 2/2 First Striker is nice. White's oppressive, but this is going to be a windmill slam first pick every time. I'm never passing this pack 1 pick 1 on Arena where there's no foils. I can't imagine if there's an uncommon that you legitimately pick over this. It either means that white is terrible in the format, or there is some really busted uncommon. Giant's Amulet is a single blue mana for an artifact equipment. Let's see if they kept the equip thing. Did they? When Giant's Amulet enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 and a blue. If you do, create a 4/4 blue giant wizard creature token, then attach it to it. So kind of in a way, yes. So yeah, living weapons, right? Living weapons are back. I thought somebody was mentioning living weapons with regard to Sigrid, but now I understand. Yes, Giant's Amulet is very much like a living weapon. So you can play that. It also has equipped creature gets +0/+1 and has this creature has hexproof as long as it's untapped. Interesting. So doesn't have flash or anything, so you can't hexproof to save something. That means really you're kind of wanting to cast this as a 5-drop 4/5 hexproof, right? I mean, that's really this thing's job, is to be a 5 mana 4/5 hexproof. And then if it dies, you get to move it around. Thing is, moving this around isn't that great unless you have excellent creatures that you're looking to pre-protect against Oppo's removal. Like if you got some bomb that you want to hexproof up, that's understandable. But really, I see this as a 5/4 hexproofer that leaves you something reasonable back if it dies, and that's pretty strong. I'm thinking of like we played RNA recently, Ravnica Allegiance, which had the Homunculus, which was a 2/5 hexproof for 5. So, and that was a common. So if 2/5 hexproof for 5 is kind of a baseline for a 5 mana hexproof in blue, you can see how this adds a couple of power and the ability to move the equipment side of it later, and the ability to play this as equipment if you don't have the total 5 mana. So really, I just like to find a comparison point from the past so that we have a framework from which to adjust it. So looking at that, the Homunculus at 2/5 hexproof, obviously that was playable, but you didn't want to. This I'm actively interested in. I don't know, I'll probably first pick this before the end of the format, but it's not super appealing. I mean, like out of a pack 2. I doubt I'll first pick this out of a pack 1 unless it's a really weak pack or blue's incredible or something. But yeah, good role filler. Next up in the uncommon slot, I was told about this. I always say look for the uncommon gold signpost build-arounds, or the signpost uncommons that tell you what colors are up to. So we get a couple of them here. because apparently there are 2 cycles of 10 gold uncommons in this format. One is a cycle of legends, and another is a cycle of sagas. So hopefully we'll learn a lot about what these color pairs are up to based on the saga and the legend here. We have Forging the Tyrite Sword for 1 red white. And when it enters, you create a treasure token. So first 2 chapters are color fixing and ramp. Temporary, but you pay 3, you're going to get 2 back eventually. Okay, so that's interesting. It's also permanent. I don't know how artifacts entering the battlefield might matter. I don't know if sacrificing permanents matter, but treasure tokens are interesting because I always talk about looking for the glue in limited formats, and treasure tokens are an interesting little piece of glue because they do so many things. It's an artifact that enters the battlefield. It's a token that enters the battlefield. It's a permanent that sits on the battlefield. It's a permanent that sacrifices itself to trigger sacrifice. A lot of things that you can do with treasure. They fixes mana. I love mechanics like treasure because of the little stuff they do. What's chapter 3 got for us? Search your library for a card named Halvar, God of Battle, or an equipment card. So you have a backup plan of just random equipment. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. This seems medium to me. It does give us some signposting. It says that red-white is probably equipment-based, which has been true in the past. So this is giving me a read that look out for equipment in red-white. Really interesting to give Boros ramp and then like tutoring. My problem with this card is that if Boros is like it has been historically, it's a very aggressive color pair. And I don't know if this is what I want to be doing on turn 3. Normally with Boros, I want to be doing something more aggressive on turn 3. But maybe this has some play as actually some kind of control card. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a really controlling, powerful end game equipment that you draft, and then you draft this, and you're actually just ramping to control. So I wouldn't throw out the idea that you could take this and end up in control, but I don't like first picking this. This seems like, unless we discover that the format, the equipment is bonkers and Boros is the best deck, I don't see starting with this. But it does give us a little bit of a signpost at least. Over here we have Kardur, the Doomscourge, 2 black, red for a 4/3, legendary creature at uncommon. So medium baseline stats, got to be something good here. When Kardur, Doomscourge enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. Little commander throw in there. Mostly commander, there's other formats that matters. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's interesting. So first, the forced attacks is a powerful ability in and of itself. Making your opponent attack you every turn, it does a couple of things. If you're a controlling deck, you can set up good blocks and block them into oblivion and then just stroll your way to victory after you have eaten all their attackers. Or maybe you don't have the tools to actually manage their attackers, but you can use this to make it a race. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's going to help you in a race if you've got removal to back it up with. And one thing to note about this rules text is often it's like our stuff. It's attacking creatures. So whether your attacking creatures or their attacking creatures die, you're going to drain them. So it's nice to so the play pattern this is setting up ideally really is you get in big swings with your aggressive stuff, but you've got a 1/4 and a 2/5 back that are just eating your opponent's attackers while draining them when they do. So that's what this is kind of setting you up to, asking you to do, and giving you a fine baseline 4/3 for 4. Fine, not great, just acceptable. Acceptable baseline makes this a pretty darn appealing card. Do we start with it? I don't know if it's a first pick card. Kind of depends on where these color pairs shake out. It's what happens a lot to these gold cards. I mean, think about the gold cards of the past, and early on, it can be hard to assess which ones are going to be the cream of the crop in the format. And largely, I find that it ends up that the format drives that by telling us what the best archetypes are, and then those gold cards become the best because they're in the best archetype. Sometimes they're a part of why, but sometimes it's just like, it's a whatever card, but it happens to be in a great color pair. Right now, though, we're on a 3-for-1. Like, I'll be surprised if something here takes us off of 3-for-1 potential on the first pick. Elderleaf Mentor, our first common, is 3 and a green for a 3/2 elf warrior. I want a card out of this. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Well, it's interesting what I said, because you get something, but that's not quite a card's worth of value. I like the wizard from Zendikar better than this, for example. The 3/2 for 4, same cost, but the ETB draws a card. That's way better than a token, unless you're very much doing something specifically with tokens. So that being said, 4 power and 3 toughness across 2 bodies for 4 mana is not unplayable. I just think you're going to find this is a late pick that you're fine to run this. It's fine. This is like your CC minus, in my opinion. There's going to be common, like some 2-drop green common is going to be the C+, right? Like this is the CC minus, and then there's going to be other green commons that are more in your C+ range. We'll see. This could end up being C+ after all said and done if making elf warrior creature tokens is more valuable than simply creating a 1/1. I don't think it's going to be C+ territory if 1/1 is just a whatever classic, you chump with it, whatever. But if you're doing something with a 1/1, yeah. And I can get behind it. Hagi Mob, I don't know if that's pronouncing that right. Hagi Mob, I'm going to go with that for now. 4 and a red for a 5/4 at common. These tend not to be a priority. What does it do? Boast, 1 and a red. It deals 1 damage to any target, but activate this ability only if the creature attacked this turn and only once each turn. So attack with your 5/4 for 5. And you get to ping something. Well, the value of this is going to depend on the amount of 1 toughness relevance at common, especially. That's going to really dictate the value of this card, because really the value of a 5/4 for 5 in red is very minimal. I actively don't want a clunky 5/4 for 5 over. Usually there's just something better to do at 5 than something like this. However, the reason medium cards exist like this is you don't always get what you want, and it's a fine fallback position. That being said, its value in, say, best of 1 as a card for your main deck is going to depend on how we feel about the 1 toughness in the format. So, yeah, it attacks like a 6/4. Absolutely. Yep. But it's a 6/4 with activation, right? You don't. If it was for free, if the boast was free, then you could absolutely think of it as 6/4. At 5 mana, you're probably going to have the mana for this pretty often, so it's pretty fair to think of it as a 6/4. But it's a 6/4 that requires mana to do that. Certainly not going to be our first pick, and we don't know how good it is until we understand the format better, because that ping is one of those widely variable abilities that is so format dependent. Exactly, that's a Dreadworm style card, right? But it could take a boost if it's a 1 toughness heavy format. Goldmaw Champion is 2 and a white for a 2/3. Boast, 1 and a white for a tap target creature. So you can do this mid combat. That's the trick there, right? So we at 2 and a white, 2/3, we play a 2-drop, 2 power. On turn 3, we play this. On turn 4, we swing in, we tap your 1 good blocker, we hit you for 4, and then we use the remaining 2 to cast another 2-drop, right? So, Territorial Hammer Skull, but you have to pay, which is fair. Territorial Hammer Skull was kind of too good. At 2 mana, this is pretty expensive. I bet they tried this at a single white mana, but probably found that to be still too Hammer Skullian good. Whereas if you make them use 2, because like imagine that play sequence I just described. I mean, sometimes it can feel like these numbers are so random, right? I don't know what y'all think of how your game designer brains work or don't work, but you look at something like this, like Shrug, whatever, they threw a number on a card. Exactly how much to put here hugely turns the knob of power here, right? Because I was talking about that turn 4 scenario of attack with Champ, tap something down, get in for a couple of creatures, and then cast a 2-drop. Well, switch this to a single white, and now suddenly we're casting 3 drops in that scenario. We're casting 4 drops on turn 5 with that scenario. It's like so much better. It seems like just a little bit better because it's 1 mana. In that early game, in terms of what it allows you to do and when it allows you to sneak in the 1 mana, 1 mana is functionally better than just twice as good. You know, the 50% discount is even greater than that in terms of how it plays. So just wanted to call that out. This isn't going to be our pick, but it looks like it's going to be a strong card in white aggressive decks. Frostbite. Single red mana for a snow instant. Does this look like our shock for the set? Oh yeah. Frostbite deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker, although shock does go to face, this does not. If you control 3 or more snow permanents, it deals 3 damage instead. Interesting because, like, if you control excuse me, if you control 3 or more snow permanents, screams keyword mechanic, right? Because what was the name of the mechanic in Scars? The 3 or more artifacts. So, like, we've seen this mechanic in Snowcraft. Thank you, Metalcraft, and Jim correctly nails. Like, this is Snowcraft. They just chose not to keyword it, which means it's not a huge load-bearing mechanic in the set. But I wonder how many. I wonder if there are other instances of this. I don't know. Somebody, maybe I'll Kibler Google it, and if I'm curious if someone wants to check how many other spells in this format say if you control 3 or more snow permanents. But Frostbite looks like to be a early aggressive pick. It's going to be fine as a deal 2 for 1 mana. When you can lightning bolt this, it's going to be that much more incredible. But early pick, still not better than Sigrid here, but probably number 2 in this pack for me right now. Village Rites we know. I'm not going to start with it, but interesting to see it back. This is the type of thing that could increase the value of something like Elderleaf Mentor. If sack for value is a thing, then suddenly that 1/1 elf token gets a little better. We have Valor of the Worthy, a single white mana for an aura, and it enchants a creature and gives it +1/+1. Unimpressed so far. When it enchanted creature leaves the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So this gives you something if they take care of your aggro. This is unlikely to be good, but there are formats where this would have been good. Like if you give me this in triple Zendikar, original Zendikar, for example, this would be great. If you played this even in maybe Amonkhet Remastered or the original Amonkhet, this would probably be worth playing. So I'm not saying that a card like this can't find a home in a format, but it has to be a very, very specific situation where aggro is the best deck in the format. Aggro white is the best deck in the format, and where bounce is bad. Because the other thing that's really awful about something like Valor of the Worthy is when it gets bounced and you don't get your spirit token. But if there's things like lifelink and first strike on cheap drops, and white is the most aggressive, best deck in the format, that's like a lot of ifs. I like to look at new cards and ask myself, is there a world in which this is actually good in this format? And if so, what does that look like, right? And so it is leave the battlefield. Thank you for that correction. So that's good. So it does work with bounce. That's a plus for it. I still think it doesn't change the valuation much, but thank you for that call out. So you do get the token when it's bounced. So that's huge to give you that protection. But fundamentally, it's still about the job it has, which would be to push through damage from small white creatures in a format with bad removal in which aggro is king. So just a lot of stuff there before this is even playable. But I like to look at new cards and imagine what their playable level is so that you know what to look for, which is mostly to never play this. But there are or like Enchantment Fall, right? This could have been a potential. What's that? That 1-drop 1/2 that when Enchantment Fall happens, you throw a +1/+1 around. So again, you can come up with decks where this would where you'd play it, but they're very, very specific and narrow decks. Yeah, Pious Wayfarer would like that card, right? Behold the Multiverse is 3 and a blue for an instant. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Foretell 1 and a blue. Ooh, I like it. I like it. I'm going to be playing a lot of this card, I bet. Especially the instant part of it. Although, I guess the instant... Let's see. Cast it later. Okay, so I had to get this. So let's talk about Foretell. Foretell says 1 and a blue. And then during your turn, you may pay 2, which is and exile this card from your hand face down. Cast it on a later turn for its Foretell cost. So in this case, it's installment plan. We can pay 4 mana all at once or across 2 turns. And this is interesting. It has to be across 2 turns. We've seen installment plan style cards in the past where you make a payment and then you make another payment. But this is a case where in the past, if you happen to have the payment for both sides, you could do it. It was like installment plan or all at once. In this case, you do have the all at once play. So in this case, it doesn't matter because you could just do it all at once for the full cost. But I just want to call out that it's important to note that you don't get to split it up. So like, let's say, for example, let's say there was a card that said, whenever you foretell, make a 2/2 flying blue token creature, right? In that case, we want to foretell, so we want to split it up, but you can't do it on the same turn. You couldn't go, oh, I want to trigger my foretell Drake engine, so I'm going to go foretell and then cast it. You can't do that. You got it on a later turn. That being said, this is so great. You remember, like, talking about the different something that comes up a lot on limited resources and around here is the difference between 3 mana draw 2 and 5 mana draw 3, because a lot of players are going to look at 5 mana draw 3, which is often the uncommon, by the way. Common draw 2 for 3, uncommon draw 3 for 5, right? A lot of people are attracted to that uncommon draw 3 for 5, when the reason that draw 2 for 3 is better is because of what it does to help you in mana stuck situations. Draw 2 for 3 says, all right, my opener only has 2 lands in it, but it's got a divination. So if I find my 3rd land by turn 3, which is likely, even if I don't find my 4th land for turn 4, on turn 4, I can cast my divination and find that 4th land, right? That's one of the huge uses of the whole divination thing. And Behold the Multiverse says you get all of that, but at 2. Now, of course, long term, you're paying more mana. But in terms of the job of keeping you from being mana screwed early in a Magic game, this just does the job better than divination. And divination was already good at that job. So I think this is going to be a linchpin card for blue in the format. I think it's going to be a card that when you get this mid-late pack and you're already in blue, you're going to be like, yes, all right, we got another Behold. Because you're going to feel so great about opening hands that contain 2 mana and a Behold the Multiverse. I mean, note that even the foretell cost, like doing the foretell thing, in this case, it doesn't even take blue. I assume it's the case in all of them. Like, you could even potentially say, look, I don't have blue yet. I only have my other color right now. I've got 2 mountains in my spells deck, but I can keep because I also have my red bomb and I don't want to mulligan my bomb. And this lets you say, even with 2 mountains, I get to foretell Behold the Multiverse on 2. So super, super impressed with not only the foretell mechanic in terms of how it allows you to to set up your future draws and to do something on 2. So many Magic games are non-games because one player has nothing to do on 2 and the other player does, and then it all falls apart from there. This lets so many more people have something useful to do on 2. So really, really like that a lot. And then, holding up counterspell is interesting. Foretell has to be done at sorcery speed, well, I shouldn't say sorcery speed, during your turn. You have to do it during your turn. But then casting the spell goes back to being an instant. So you can, once you have foretold this, you can do it instead of an instant or back up an instant. So that's really nice. High pick. Barrow Intruder is blue for a 1/2 flash human rogue. Maybe this is our combat mess with her of the set. When it enters the battlefield, sure enough, target creature an opponent controls gets -2, -0 until end of turn. So this is like exactly like the rogue we just had in Zendikar, except it doesn't do self-mill, and it trades you a self-mill for a point of toughness, right? Yeah, I said self-mill. Sorry, I meant mill. I just meant mill. You know, oppo mill. Yep. So if mill doesn't matter, this is a little better. This might let you. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, this could let you get some stuff that maybe didn't. Really, it's very similar. So Barrow Intruder probably better than it looks in the same way that that all of these tend to be. I don't know how many of these you want in your deck. But because that was the thing with this roll, you can flood on these, but having one has been very good, I've found. So, and also again, if this environment is just full of 1/1 tokens, you can do worse than a 1/2 as well. Glittering Frost, 2 and a green for an aura snow enchantment. Enchant land, and it becomes a snow land, and whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. So this is a classic 3 mana green ramp aura. We've seen this again and again. It can be hard for a deck to take a turn off on turn 3 to ramp. If aggro is really healthy in the format and you got to worry about the fun police, sometimes taking a full turn 3 to get your mana ramped is too much. That's one of the reasons that one of these I liked a lot was the life gain one. A little incidental life gain is decent. We don't get that here, though. One thing worth noting is that it creates 2 snow permanents for 1 card. So I don't know if anybody did go and look it up, but if there are a lot of cards that are looking for 3+ snow permanents, keep in mind that Glittering Frost gives you 2 on 1 card. But whether this is good is going to depend on the speed of the format, really, and whether or not there's a 5-color or 3+ color base green deck. That's where this shines. A good adage for the 3 mana ramp fixer is that you don't generally want to play this unless you are both fixing and ramping. You want to both have a 3rd color you're trying to cast, and you want to have big things to try to get to early, or else this is not going to pull its weight. And one of the reasons why it won't pull its weight is because if you're not getting a repeat value out of it, like let's say you cast Glittering Frost, and then on turn 4, you cast a 5-drop, so you've ramped out a 5-drop a turn early, but then that extra mana is irrelevant for the rest of the game. You never take advantage of the extra mana, and you never take advantage of the splash potential for the rest of the game. Well, that 5-drop then is a 2-for-1, because the only thing this Glittering Frost ever did is get a different creature out 1 turn earlier, then you're setting yourself up for a 2-for-1. And that's not worth it, right? So I just want to frame these rampers, because it can feel like it's free, but unless you're really making repeat use of the earlier mana and the extra colors of mana, these cards aren't worth it. Dread Rider is 5 and a black for a 3/7 Spirit Knight. 1 and a black, tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Target opponent loses 3 life. I kind of like this. This is my early vote for the LSV-ist card of the set. Right? You just know Luis wants to win with this card, right? So this is not a high pick and not a priority, but it does have a job, right? The job of this card is to really just hold the ground, really solidly hold the ground, and then eventually win the game from there. Of course, you need to exile a creature card. No guarantee that you're going to have endless fuel. But if you have a lot of attrition, a lot of Oppo Mill, which I hear is in the set, this could be a win con. It's just not a priority at all. This is like I'm going to call this like a D+ if I were doing limited resources style grading, just because it's not a priority. But this is where why I think I am less interested in grades and more interested in job orientation, because when you understand the job of a card, you can know if and when you're supposed to take it. And the job of this card is to finish games for control decks that failed to find a good high rarity finisher. If you didn't find that sweet uncommon or that sweet rare that's gonna close out your control games, you can hire Dread Rider for the job and know that you've got that job filled, right? So think of things in terms of job orientation, and you're going to find the correct times to play Dread Rider, which is going to be almost never, but it's good to know that it's not never, and it's good to know when you're supposed to. Yeah, 5-drop, you could make this 5, but and then it would be actively good. 6 is just so much mana unlimited, right? Ice Tunnel. Ice Tunnel is a snow land. It's an island swamp, and it enters the battlefield tapped. Interesting that it's an island swamp. That makes it fetchable with the old school fetches. And that means, I don't know, maybe these are these actually relevant in Modern? Modern has some snow decks where fetching yourself a snow duel could be pretty nice. So now I'll zoom out on this pack now that we've talked about all the cards in it. And of course, after all that, we are going to slam Sigrid as the first pick, and let's talk about second, third, fourth. Like, let's see, I think second pick's probably Frostbite for its flexibility and single coloredness. And then I like probably, I think I would try Doomscourge at that point. And see if that's worth the double color. But then Behold is staring at me going, you can always take me. This is going to be fine. Then I'm not really, then it starts to fall off pretty quickly from there. But Amulet, Champ, Mentor, just take some fixing. Anyway, Sigrid. All right, so that's it. We did the draft, right? Given how long that took, I feel like... Wait a second. All right, so this is, remember, this is against bots. Actually, you know what? Having done that, maybe I'll restart and open this up against humans. Because if the bots aren't going to do any kind of actual picking, then then we're just getting random cards. So let's call that an opening Crack-a-Pack. In fact, I'm going to do this. First Crack-a-Pack for the new set. Kaldheim Crack-a-Pack for you. Looking forward to actually getting to draft and play this. And I'm going to do another one of these here with human beings, and we'll go through more of an actual draft, and I won't take so long in every pick, okay? All right.